Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 36 of The Loud House, Fed Up. We begin this segment with all 11 Loud siblings rushing down to dinner in excitement, only for Lincoln to quickly reveal to the audience that this is actually a what-if scenario. He and his sisters don't look forward to dinner all that much in reality, but he quickly assures the audience that none of them think that their dad is a bad cook, just repetitive. He quickly explains to the audience that the Loud family have very specific meals for all 7 days of the week for dinner time. So they always have a specific dinner every Sunday, they have a specific dinner every Monday, etc., wet lather, rinse, repeat. And he says that he and his sisters just wish they could have something else for a change now and then. For this particular dinner, Lincoln tries to hypnotize himself into thinking that the dinner is ice cream, and he says that's his way of coping. When Lola hears this explanation after she questions him about it, she wants to imagine eating ice cream too. So she fights with Lincoln over the item he's using to try and hypnotize himself. And their fight causes them to accidentally bump into the meal and it falls off the table. But Lynn Sr. manages to catch it before it hits the floor, and he remarks he would have had to order pizza for them instead if the dinner was ruined. And this gives Lincoln an idea. He quickly tells his sisters later on that his idea involves them intentionally ruining tomorrow's dinner so they can have pizza instead, and the sisters are quickly on board with this idea. The next main part of the segment involves the Loud siblings coming up with everything they can think of to ruin the dinner so they can have pizza instead. There's a lot of close calls and they fight tooth and nail to succeed, and yeah, they do eventually succeed. They're able to have pizza for dinner that particular night, and it is a glorious meal. But things take a turn for the worse for the Loud siblings anyway, when Lynn Sr. discovers ingredients for his food in the pockets of his bathrobe and in his slippers. It turns out Lenny was responsible for that. So the Loud siblings come clean that they intentionally ruined the dinner so they could have pizza for the night, but explaining that it was just because they were tired of having the same meal every day of the week. Rita responds that the kids don't seem to appreciate what Lynn Sr. has to do for the family, explaining that it's easier said than done to come up with nutritious meals for all 7 days of the week for 13 family members on a budget. The siblings don't really take this claim seriously, and this is where they come up with another idea. So for the next day's dinner, they suggest that they be the ones to make the dinner, partially to prove that it's easy to come up with a new meal, but also partially to give their dad a break. And the parents agree to try this out. So it's the next day and it's dinner time, and the Loud siblings are trying to figure out what to make for dinner. They actually start to argue over what they should make for dinner, but realizing that this isn't going to help their case, they decide to have a potluck instead. So they all come up with their own meals and let everyone choose which meals they want to eat for this particular dinner. But they still end up arguing because some of the meals they have planned share ingredients in common, so they're fighting over the ingredients now. But they soon run out of time and they have to come up with something for dinner, so they just have all their meals in a fusion. They just fuse all their meals together, but it doesn't taste very good. Even the siblings admit that it doesn't taste very good. And they concede that their parents had a point about how this was easier said than done. And they decide they won't complain about this anymore. Well, Lola says she won't make any promises about this. They're hopeful that maybe they can still have some pizza because of how this dinner didn't go well. But Rita says that their food budget for this week has been used up. And the siblings fear that this is going to be a night where they don't have dinner. But Lynn Sr. refuses to let that happen, so he tries to come up with something with the food and ingredients they have in the house at the moment. And eventually he comes up with a meal that he dubs Casa Loud Casserole. And everyone actually enjoys the meal. They all thought it was a good meal. And Lynn Sr. quickly admits that his kids may have a point about changing up the menu every now and then. And he decides he wants to go and get some new ingredients at the grocery store. But the segment ends with Lynn Sr. finding out that Vanzilla is not in driving condition. Or, well, it's not in the best of condition normally, but Lana had took out the brakes for Vanzilla earlier as part of their ploy to get pizza for dinners, and she forgot to put the brakes back in, so that's how the segment ends. Overall, I actually liked this segment, and what I liked about this segment was it was a case where I think it recognized the point of both sides. Because on one hand, the Loud siblings they were just tired of eating the same meals every day, and they just wanted to change things up a bit. And while the parents had a good point about how it's not easy to come up with nutritious meals for a big family for every day of the week on a budget, at the end, Lynn Sr. did admit that the kids had a point that it's possible to switch up the menu every now and then. And yeah, that's what I liked about it. It recognized that both sides had a point, and I think it portrayed both sides in a sympathetic light. So I enjoyed the segment for that. And this segment I also like this segment because it brought a little more focus about something about Lynn Sr. Now, in previous episodes and segments, we did see Lynn Sr. dabbling with cooking before. This one, though, I felt brought a little more attention to that, and the reason why I thought that was a good thing was, this helped because of hindsight, but let's say that there's a later segment that's going to come up which actually brings up Lynn Sr. and his cooking abilities again, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but yeah, I thought that, in a way, I guess you could say this segment was sort of was a lead-in to that upcoming segment, so it was nice that we got to see a little bit more about things that Lynn Sr. does, so it gives some attention to the Loud parents, which I think is a nice touch. And, well, yeah, I especially thought it was, I could definitely understand where like I said earlier, I could understand where the Loud siblings were coming from, although I should admit, I'm actually someone who kind of does have a schedule for what I eat each week, so yeah, while it might not necessarily be something I necessarily relate to, because I actually don't mind having certain meals every week in a scheduled manner, but I still could understand where the Loud siblings were coming from, so I hope that clears things up. Like, I may not have been in the same boat as the Loud siblings, but I didn't have a problem with understanding why they would feel the way they would. And I think that was a good thing that they were able to pull that off. So, there you go. I thought this was an overall enjoyable segment. It got to focus a little bit more on what the parents do, some of their hobbies or activities or interests, if you will. And it leads into something that happens in a later segment, which we will cross. And I felt everyone was portrayed in a sympathetic light and everyone had a valid point. So, yeah, I enjoyed the segment overall. As to be expected, we'll be covering the B segment next. Take care, and until next time.